Greetings, family. Greetings, and thank you. Thank you for tuning in to the Art of Rising. This show is all about rising your consciousness, rising the levels of your life, and looking for some of the codes that life has to offer. And we try our best to bring you the very, very best guests in order for them to reveal some of the codes that we're looking for. So if you stick around to the end of the show, we have a small little gift for you. So there goes your little hook right there. And without any further ado, we'll invite this wonderful, wonderful person. I read his bio. I mean, so interesting. So please, let's tap in and see what he has to say. Welcome to the show, Farzin.
Thank you. Thank you for having me on. It's a pleasure to be here.
Of course, of course. Thank you so much. I was reading some things about you, but I'll tell you what. Why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself, where you live, and what are you doing these days?
Sure. So I live in Toronto, Ontario, Canada. And nowadays I am busy with creating some programs to help people to flourish. And so I've created a protocol, actually, it is called RISE, and it is aligned with whatever you are doing on the show. And it is not an accident because I don't believe in accidents. So RISE stands for recognize, integrate, surrender, and engage. And those four steps can help people to just know whatever that is blocking them from their full potential.
Mm.
So that is the recognizing step. And then they can integrate that, because when you find something about yourself and then you try to fight it out because you don't like it, what happens is that you're giving more energy to that. So instead of that, you can integrate it. You can bring it in, because that is about love, is not about fear. In the fear process, we just push everything out and it gets stronger and stronger and bites us in the back. But in the love process, we bring everything in. So that is the integration part. And the third part is surrender. Why? Because sometimes we keep a lot of things that there's no use. So whatever happened in the past, there are some lessons. We can keep the lessons, but we can let go of all the other things that we are carrying. So that is the surrender part, and integrate. After we surrender and let things that we don't need go, we can engage with whatever that we want to replace that with. So there's a four-step process that I've created. It is called RISE Protocol, and it is aligned with whatever you are doing on the show.
This is incredible, Farzin. Wow, I didn't know all of that. Wow, that's the synchronicity, right? Right,
It
the
is, it
synchronicity
is.
of it all, right? It's the universe, I feel that, or God, or whatever name you want to put on it. It responds to you in that way whenever you're open, and the same thing that you're looking for is also looking for you too, right? That's right.
Exactly.
That surrender part. I feel you. So yeah, this is fascinating. Rise, the art of rising, and the rise, the acronym. That's incredible. Wow. Can you tell us a little bit more about that process that you're talking about and how that goes about?
So it has been a long time for that thing to be out. And there is a reason for that. So when you want to bring something out to the world, you have to prepare it first. So that preparation part took a long time for me. So my search started from the time that I was 12 years old. So I had those big questions, like what is the meaning of life, and what am I doing in here, what is my purpose in here, what is the source of true joy, and those kind of things. So usually people at that age don't ask those questions, they are busy with their life, but somehow I had those kind of things in my mind, so I tried to get the answer from my teachers, the parents, and nobody could give me any clue about those things. So I started my search through books because at the time there was no internet and you couldn't search things easily. So I had to just rely on the books. So what happens was after 12 years of searching and searching and searching, I had more than 1,000 books in my personal library. And I went through more than 20 different paths. But I was even more confused after all. Why? Because when you don't know, you don't know. But when you start knowing things, you figure that there are a lot that you still don't know. So I was even more frustrated than the starting point. So I said to myself, I have to do something about it. It is so frustrating. I have to get my answer. I cannot get it through all the paths, the books, and I want the truth, not the shadow of the truth. Because every path that I would go in, they would give some information and some knowledge, but I wasn't satisfied. I was looking for the highest level that I could reach. Some people call it enlightenment, and so you can name it differently. But I was looking for that, so I wasn't satisfied with the little progress that I had. So I said to myself, I'm gonna do something that take me to that stage. Or if it doesn't take me to that stage, I don't want to be here anymore. So it was a radical decision. So I told myself that I'm gonna trap myself in a room. So I went to my uncle and I told him that you have a room in your basement and it's a very good room for me. He said, why? I said, there's no windows in that room and there's a washroom inside. So that's all I need. I'm going to go inside and close the door. And he said, are you crazy? I said, yeah, a mixture of crazy and frustrated. And then he said, I noticed that you are stupid as well. I said, why? He said, because you're going to go inside and die from hunger and you're not going to reach whatever level that you wanted to reach. It's a waste of life. So I said, yeah, he's smart. So I went to the market and I bought 5 kilos of raisin. I said that I'm going to survive with that. So I went into the room, closed the door, turned the light off. I'm sitting in the absolute darkness and absolute silence. So I'm facing myself. All the thoughts come up, all the emotions come up. I didn't know if I'm going to go out of that room or not because I was serious. I was looking for that kind of change that I was striving for. So what happened was I used a lot of techniques and chants and meditation and all the things that I knew through different paths, but I couldn't get it. And I was frustrated again and again. So at some point, I dropped everything. I said that I'm going to take my hands up. I cannot do much. So I was sitting in there surrendering myself to the situation in the dark. And then, when you're in that situation, a lot of emotions come, a lot of thoughts come and stuff. But I was sitting there facing myself. And then in one moment, one experience changed my life. What was that experience? That experience started from my heart. So I started a sense of warmness in my heart, and it started in here, and the heat went up and up, and it spread through whole my whole body, all the cells. I felt that my cells are burning, and on the outside I was sweating and shaking. So all of a sudden, in one moment, I felt something that I never felt before. So it is hard to describe it, but I can give you a clue with a metaphor. Like, let's say that you grab an ice cube, and you go by the ocean, and you drop that ice cube into the ocean. The ice cube is floating on the water, and after a while, it starts to melt. And when this the last piece of that ice cube is melted, it's not ice anymore. It's all ocean. So it's dissolved into the whole ocean. So that is what happened to me. I started burning from inside, and all of a sudden, it was just ocean. It was just all is one and one is all. There was no separation. Nothing was separate. Everything is all together. So I felt that I'm connected with everything and everyone. And when
Mm,
you are in that situation, in that experience, you get the answer to all your questions because you are connecting to the source of wisdom. So I didn't have any question. I came out of that room. So it took me close to 5 days. After I came out, I noticed because inside you don't know how time is passing, if it's the day or night or something like that. I came out with that experience and it changed my life because I found that there is a difference between uh, actually, so there are a couple of things that I realized. One of them was that there's a difference between happiness and joy. So, what is the difference? Happiness depends upon outer circumstances. I need someone or something to make me happy. And then there's an opposite side of happiness that sometimes we're happy, sometimes we are sad. But there is another thing which is called joy, which is within our heart, and it doesn't have any opposite, and it doesn't depend upon outer circumstances. It means that I can be in any situation, and as long as I have access to the source of joy which is inside, I feel good. So that was the first thing. The second thing, I realized that there is a difference between wisdom and knowledge. What I was looking for was the knowledge through the books, through the paths, through whatever I could get from other people. So, and I realized that there is something else, which is the source of all knowledge, which is wisdom. And that wisdom is within your heart. It is not far away. Sometimes we look for things on the outside. We put the pieces of the puzzle together to see the whole picture. But there are a lot of missing pieces that we cannot find. But seeing the whole picture, all of a sudden, you realize that you have access to it on the inside. So it is like the story of that farmer, African farmer, who sold his farm to go around the world and find diamond. And then after a few years, he passed away, couldn't find the diamond. But the farmer who bought the farm was digging, and one day he discovered that there is a piece of a stone. So he polished the stone and noticed that it's shiny. So he took it to the jeweler, and they found one of the largest diamond mines in Africa, in the same farm that the first farmer sold to go and find the diamond. So there's the same story. We all have that source of joy and wisdom within our heart, but we are looking for it on the outside. So
mm,
that was a realization that I had. And
mm.
so
And
there
you're
are
saying
some
at 12
more.
years old.
Yeah, no, I was 24 years old at the time. So it took me 12 years after age 12 to go to that point that I got frustrated enough to do that thing. So some people call it a torture. Why? Because when you are in a prison, in order to torture you even further, they put you in a solitary confinement. So that was a voluntarily experience that I had to face myself at the time because I was so frustrated enough to just do that crazy thing. But that experience changed my life. I
Mm,
realized that I'm not my physical body. Because if I'm my physical body, what happens if I cut my hand and put it in front of me? Am I going to be a different person? No, I'm not a different person. So it's something else. I'm not my emotions. If I be my emotions, what happens if I change my mood? Am I going to be a different person? No, I'm the same person. I'm not my thoughts. If I'm my thoughts, what happens if I sit down and don't think about anything? I still exist. So it means that I am something beyond all those layers and levels of physical, emotional, and mental. Some people call it consciousness, some people call it soul. It doesn't matter what you call it, but we are beyond those layers.
Mm.
And then when you are able to recognize that, then there's something else. You know, your mission. Our mission is expansion because God wants to expand itself through us because we are a drop of the ocean with the same qualities. So that is the expansion, that we are here for the expansion. And sometimes the expansion comes with pain. Why? Imagine a snake growing and growing. After a while, the old skin doesn't fit. So the snake should shed the skin, the old skin, to be able to grow. And that happens to us too. So pain is inevitable, but suffering is optional. So that
Mm.
is the other thing that I realized when I came out of that experience.
Mm.
That suffering is optional because suffering means that I'm using my prefrontal cortex and analyzing things, mentalizing things, comparing things. So we are probably the only creature in the world who gets punished million times for the mistakes that they make. So who punishes us? Ourselves. We just make a mistake and then we go through shame and guilt and several times, years after years, 50 years after that thing has happened and
Wow.
finished. You're still carrying that, and then we're mentalizing, we're punishing ourselves. So we have that potential, which is called prefrontal cortex. We create a lot of things with that, but sometimes we misuse it. So
Hmm.
that takes us to the suffering.
Right.
So there's a difference between suffering.
I've thought about this before, if I may interject, that Farzin, I've had some of these thoughts as well, where I start making this little movie in my head about something that happened to me, and I start playing it out, like what I would have said or what happened, which is not even true. And most of it's a lie, right? It's just the
Yeah,
characters are there, and then I stopped for a moment and I said, "Wait a minute, when did that happen? That happened 20 years ago."
yeah,
Farzin, if I saw that person down the street, I wouldn't even recognize the person if they passed me in the street. But here I am 20 years later, still living this thing in my head.
exactly. So that is causing problem. If we know that we are not our thoughts, we can have access to a power that is much greater than everything else. That is the power of love. We can heal ourselves because we have those emotional and mental wounds. And I just discovered that a few years ago by accident. I don't believe in accidents, but I had something at work. So I fell down and I was moving something actually, and it was heavy, and I injured my back. So what happened was that I went through a process of chronic pain for 15 years. So I lost that job and went through therapy for a while, and I found another job after. So, but the problem was that I had those kind of moments every week that I would go to the freeze mode. I couldn't move my head to the sides. So every time that I was trying to move my head, I feel a lot of pain. So I would go to therapy, like physiotherapy and those kind of things, and they would release the pain that I had. But the problem was that nobody could put their finger on a specific muscle or an area that is injured. Nothing was showing up on the MRI tests or whatever. No specialist could help me to know what is the source of that problem. So I was carrying that pain for 15 years. And then a friend of mine came over and she said that maybe I can help you. And she gave me a couple of phone calls. And during those phone calls, she released the trap emotions that I was carrying. So, what is trap emotion? Trap emotions are just the regular emotions that we experience in life. But because of that mental capacity that we have, sometimes we make a big deal out of it and it gets trapped in our body. Let's say that you have a failure. So, we fail at a test at a school. And then what happens is that we are thinking about it, we are mentalizing it, we are talking about it with others, that why I that happened to me and stuff like that. So it is an ongoing process. So our subconscious mind says that I'm gonna store this energy in the body somewhere and I'm gonna deal with it later. So it is an unprocessed emotion. So you're carrying the emotion of failure, let's say. And then what happens is that that emotion that you're carrying has a lower vibration than the average vibration that we have in our body. So it is bringing us down. And then it is vibrating at a level that is matching with the similar vibrations. So we are more vulnerable to experience failure again in our life, and it can get then trapped somewhere else in our body. And she was explaining that and releasing the trapped emotions that I had over the phone. And she said that let me know if you're feeling better or not. So a week passed. I felt better at the time, but a week passed. I was waiting for that pain to come back, but it never came back. And
Mm.
I was amazed by that process. So how on the distance she could do something like that. And then she encouraged me. She said that you have the talent to do the same thing for others. So, and she explained that everybody on average has more than 200 of those trapped emotions that they're carrying, and they are painting the picture of their life. Those are like filters. For example, if I have the emotion of grief, I'm carrying the emotion of grief because of whatever happened to me. Maybe I lost a loved one or something like that. And then that emotion is like a dark shade that I'm wearing. Even on the when I go inside in a dark place, I'm wearing that dark shade glasses, and then it changes my view. So we have all those emotions, and our behavior is based on those emotions. And then some people call it. Some people talk about correcting behaviors, but you cannot correct behaviors. You have to go to the root cause. The
Right.
root cause is those emotions that we are carrying, the limiting beliefs that we have. Those are the root causes. Not if you force something, it doesn't give you the results. It's like going in front of the mirror and you're standing in there, you're watching your face, you don't like your face, and you smash the mirror. It doesn't do anything. You know, the outside world is just a reflection of whatever we have on the inside.
Right. If I will also add that I've also learned that the subconscious is the one that's running a lot of these things, right? The subconscious is the one that holds all those memories. So it's kind of like that record that's playing in the back of your head. So we need to get to that record, and change the record, put another record on, or spin it backwards, or something to that effect. But most people, we're just looking for a band-aid, just something that's on the top layer. So before you speak to us a little bit more about this subconscious and some of these things that are the root cause of our behaviors, I just like to pause for a moment and thank you again for being here because it's so fascinating. I'm loving this. But I also want to say that we are having an event, and one of our events that we do here, by the way, Farzin, is that we work with ice. Okay, so it's so synchronistic that you're mentioning ice, and being in the ocean and those type of things where the healing takes place, because we do breath work with an ice plunge. What this does is that it pushes people into the present moment. That's one of our staples here at the Omzio Healing Sanctuary. And we're happen to be having an event this Sunday on the 27th. We are collaborating with Carolina. She is a yoga instructor, and she is performing yoga for about 40, 45 minutes. And then that's after that, people will come to me for the ice. This is taking place in New Jersey, in Gutenberg, New Jersey, on Sundays, beginning at 10 a.m. So come on down. It's super affordable. If you're interested, let us know. And yeah, I just wanted to mention that it's our commercial break here. But yeah,
Yeah,
please.
very nice. Mm.
Thank you so much. But yes, please continue. I'd love to know more about the root causes, and how is it that we can get to it in order to remove this reoccurring behavior, and addictions, and depressions that we find ourselves in constantly.
Sure, yeah. So, root cause is very important. Sometimes if we have a pain and then we take a painkiller, so it is a band aid solution, because that pain is an indicator that something is out of balance, something is not working properly. So when I work with my clients, based on whatever they have, the pains or the struggles, we just go to the root cause and find those trapped emotions and limiting beliefs, and we clean them up, and then we get that person gets side benefits, not the side effect. When you take a medication, you usually get some side effects. But when you work on the root cause and release the root cause, what happens is that they get side benefits, because that root cause might be the root for many other things as well. So you're preventing those from happening. So it's very important. And how subconscious mind works is that our subconscious mind is responsible for our automatic process that we have. So when you want to learn to drive, it is not an easy task at first. You sit in the car for the first time, you have to pay attention to the clutch, the gas, brake, and stick shift, and the steering wheel. So I remember when I was learning to drive at first, I had a hard time not getting my view from the steering shift when I was changing the gears. So at first, so but after a while, you're driving on an automatic mode. It means that you are driving for a long drive, and then you're thinking about a million things, and you are even, some people talk on the phone and they chat and do many other things while they are driving. So the driving is happening on the background. It's like the many other things that is happening on the background, like heartbeats. It doesn't matter when we are aware of it or not, it is taking place in the background. Our heart is beating. Like digestion. We don't think about the type of assets that we need in our stomach to separate the good things from a food and release the bad things that we don't need. So our stomach is working the way it should be on the background. And it's very complicated. Nobody can make something like that. It is very complicated.
Mm,
So all of those things are happening on the background.
mm,
And so if we have a type of belief, we can get that belief in our childhood, the first 6 or 7 years of our life, our mind is receptive. and then we receive all those information from outside world, and we just consider them as a fact. So it is painting the picture in our life. Or sometimes it comes with an experience. You go to a partnership with someone and then you lose some money, and then you conclude that partnership is bad. And if this situation arises that the best partner can join you to just build a business, you say, no, I'm not going to go to partnership, because you have that mindset on the background. It's very strong. And sometimes even we download those kind of information based on our culture. So everybody is raised in a different culture. So based on the society that you are growing up, so you
Mm,
are downloading all that information. So they all of those are within us. And so what happens is that our subconscious mind process is very fast and strong. And for every thought that we have, conscious thought that we have, something between 20 to 40 neurons are fired in our brain per second. For subconscious process, for every second, something around 20 million to 40 million neurons are fired in our brain.
wow.
So the processing power of our subconscious mind is a million times faster and stronger than our conscious thoughts. That's
Mm,
why when we decide to do something, if it's not aligned with our subconscious programming, it is an very hard to change things. It is like trying to change the direction of a train by hand. So
mm,
we cannot do that. So sometimes imagine that the train is going south, and we are in the train, and we start thinking that I'm gonna move north. We are in the train, we walk north inside the train. Where do we end up? South, of course, because the train is going south. So the same thing happens to us. We decide to do something, but the fact is that whatever programming that we have on the inside is the determining factor that takes us to the place that we are going to go. So if we want to change something, we have to start the change in our subconscious mind, in the programming of those limiting beliefs and those trapped emotions and the patterns that we have in our subconscious mind. So that is the starting point. And sometimes we can bring the subconscious mind align with whatever we want to do.
mm.
So there are some tools and techniques that we can use to do that. Because if we try to fight your subconscious mind, you become a wounded warrior. Why?
Be-
Because you can achieve something, but at the end, you're going to be so wounded that you cannot even have energy to celebrate. So that's why people try to build a business or do something for themselves. They go through business, but along the line, they go through a lot of stress and anxiety, and it affects their health. So they might build a business, but it's costing their health. It's not
mm,
worth it. And
mm.
sometimes people go through that process, but they lose their relationship because we are stealing time from the time that we can spend with our loved ones to build a business, and then we lose our relationships. So sometimes we lose our happiness because people think that I'm gonna get somewhere and then I'm gonna be happy. But it is the other way around. We have to start with happiness. Otherwise, you go on top and look inside that you feel empty.
Yeah,
And then
that's true. I find that even with with struggling to do things, that's where the real reward is. People like, the fast, quick type of things. And it's usually that the prefrontal cortex that you speak about. It's the one that helps us to navigate this realm, right? The clothes that we choose and all of this, and be careful when you're crossing the street and those type of things. But sometimes it's on overdrive. So it just so happens, another synchronicity is that when we work with the ice and we get people submerged in their neck in water. It's 2 minutes. And what it does is that it quiets that prefrontal cortex. It gets loud in the beginning, but then it gets very quiet, and then you can't think about anything else. You can't think about, did you turn off the stove before you left the house, or did you feed the cat? You can't think of any of those things. It pushes you in the present moment, and it quiets that prefrontal cortex just a little bit. So it's like an
Mhm.
exercise for the mind, but I do find myself thinking about those things too, things that have passed. And you know um, I was raised a certain way, with a certain religion, certain music, certain clothing, a certain atmosphere. And then as I grow older, I start to see things that I like, but then I start questioning it, like, why would I like Chinese food? Or why am I going to a Greek restaurant? I was raised by parents from the island of Puerto Rico. But then I started
Mhm.
learning that I can't do that. I can start creating my own life. And I started changing that little record in the background. It wasn't easy though. It wasn't easy. I think about like plants that grow in the cement and crack the very stone itself. Like, imagine the effort that it took in order to do that, for it to grow into a massive tree. you know.
Mm. Exactly. Yeah, it is. It might seem not to be a straightforward and easy process, but if we know how to deal with it, there are some ways that can ease up the process. For
So
example,
perhaps, yes, you can tell us.
yeah, if there is something that you want to do, a new thing. So I'm just gonna give you one thing that I mentioned in my book. There's a 10-step process in my book, and I'm gonna summarize it in 3 steps, so it's easier for the viewer or listener to remember that. So that what is that 3-step process? Whatever you want to do, uh, first of all, it is impossible to just close our eyes and open our eyes and there's a building in front of us. There is some stages. So the foundation, the walls and the roof and inside walls and electrical, plumbing, heating and cooling, a lot of things are going on to build a building. So some of them are at the same time, some of them are one after another, but there are little tasks that we need to do in order to build a building. Whatever project, whatever goal that you have to break it down into smaller chunks at first to be able to manage to move towards it. But the problem is, those are the tasks. And we don't like tasks because it feels work, it feels pressure. So we delay those tasks because our subconscious mind says that I don't know where you are going. It is not safe because our subconscious mind is designed to keep us on the safe zone.
Mm,
It is not for the progress, it is not for success, it is not in for success.
mm,
So
mm,
the only thing that it wants is to protect us, like a let's say that a bodyguard, we have a bodyguard and we go to another country and then we are in a hotel and we decide to go to the market and the bodyguard says, no, I'm not going to let you go to the open market, you can be exposed to a lot of people, so you stay in the hotel, I go and buy whatever you want. So that bodyguard doesn't let us to explore and expand. It wants to keep us on the safe zone. So first of all, we have to have a friendly conversation with that bodyguard, which is our subconscious mind. We say, no, everything that you want to start, the fear comes. Fear of failure, fear of success, fear of change, and many other things. Even people get sick when they want to start a new thing because that subconscious mind goes to the bag of tricks and grabs those tricks, and if they don't work, that the subconscious mind make you sick so you cannot move towards whatever you want to go because it's duty to just keep you wherever you want. wherever
mm,
you are right now,
mm,
because it says that there's danger. So
mm,
you have to know all those things. So we say to subconscious mind, I know that you want to protect me and I appreciate it. But in this specific case, I'm gonna take the full responsibility for whatever I'm gonna be doing. So it's a friendly conversation. It's not just a conversation, it's a realization.
mm,
So you realize, you recognize all those blocks that is
mhm,
coming, and then you integrate it. That is the
mhm,
right process. So
mhm,
so what happens is that we have to break it into smaller chunks and those tasks. But the problem is they're called tasks. But I'm gonna suggest something. Instead of calling them tasks, you can call them games. What is the difference? We all enjoy playing games, but we
mhm.
don't like to do the tasks. So we change the label. That is another thing that is my in my book. Sometimes just changing the label makes us to just go far. For
Mm,
example, failure.
one second before you give us the examples. What is the name of the book?
So the name of the book is Joyful Fix: How to Break Free from Stagnation and Move Forward in Life.
Okay, okay. Go ahead,
And then
continue.
it is, it is on my website. The website is joyfulfix.com. So if you go to that website, there is a link to the book. And so the thing is that we call them tasks. Sometimes just changing a label changes everything. Why? Because if we change problem to feedback, failure to feedback. So sometimes we fall down, but if we call it the feedback, it means that we can learn from it and it helps us to just move forward like a child who falls down hundreds of times until they start to walk. So, but when we fall down once, we start mentalizing it and then we don't want to move on because we call it failure. So we change the label. So in this case, a specific case, we change the label from task to game. So we have those little games to play. So after that, those three-step process comes. So the first step is game plan. Before we go to sleep, we think about those little games that we want to play the day after. What happens is that usually when you go to sleep, when you want to go to sleep, before you go to sleep, you think about a lot of things, all the things that didn't work out during the day, all the things that the worries and anxieties that you have for the day after or something like that. So we are putting a lot of information, negative things into our subconscious mind. And our subconscious mind is wide open before we go to sleep because it's in alpha mode. So it is receptive. So we're putting all those negative things. So instead, I suggest that we can put all those little games that we want to play into our subconscious mind. Just think about whatever game that you want to play that is aligned with your big goal. So what happens is that when you wake up, you are still thinking about those little games because you put the information in there. Before you get up, I suggest that we go to the second step of the process. The first step was game plan. The second step is mental rehearsal. So warm up, I call in my book, I call the warm up. Warm up is the type of mental rehearsal. So as you are laying down, you imagine that you're playing those little games, whatever you chose the night before. So you imagine that you are in the middle of the game and you're enjoying the game and you finish the game and you feel excited about whatever you achieved or something like that. And then you just open your eyes and get up and go to whatever you want to do. So that is the mental rehearsal. So you did it the second time, you programmed your subconscious mind again. So, and then what happens is that during the day, the third step of the process comes, which is just playing those little games, because you program your subconscious mind two times: one before you go to sleep, and then the second time after you wake up. Those two
Mm.
critical moments, and then playing is becomes a fun process, and then we go play those little games, and all of a sudden we see ourselves at our destination. It's just like the navigating system that an airplane has. Most of the time, the plane is out of its course, but the pilot is just adjusting the route to just keep moving,
Mm.
adjusting, moving, and then all of a sudden the plane is at its destination. So the same
Mm.
thing happens to us. If we use those three-step process, we get to our destination without hustle and grind, with joy and ease. So that is
Mm.
the three-step process to bring
Yeah,
the subconscious mind aligned with us.
I was looking at your book there. I see it's on Amazon, and yeah, I've put the name of the book there on the screen, and also in the ticker, I've placed your website, which is JOYFULFIX.com.
Yeah.
And people have asked me how have I gotten out of some of the situations that I somehow put myself, mostly, some people help, but I put mostly myself into these situations. And I tell them that I brainwash myself. That's how I did it. Like I've done some of those steps that you speak about, Farzin, where it took me a little bit of time to create these little adjustments, these little habits, right? People
Hmm.
meet me and they go, how can you eat like that? How can you work out like that? How can you train your body like that? How can you learn those things like that? And I tell them it took time for me to do this. I didn't just wake up in the morning and be the way I am. Like it took me time, like
Yeah.
sometimes years, in order for me to do this. Like I go running in the morning. I'm often up at 4 o'clock in the morning and I run for about 6 or 7 miles. And I can do that for 7 days straight sometimes. And
Hmm.
people tell me, I can't do that. And I said, well, if you say that, then you're right, because
Yeah.
you believe that. But I
Exactly.
believed it too at sometimes. But I tried 1 mile, and then I went for 2 miles, and I did 2 miles for a long time. Yeah, for
Hmm.
years. And then I said, I have to break out. I have to push myself a little bit more. And it's that little adjustment that you speak about. It's so helpful.
Exactly. And the things that we have, I talked about the screen, which is life, the outside the screen. So when there is something that we don't like, it doesn't make sense to go and change it. We have to reflect on it to see what is causing that. So what is causing is that the movie that is playing inside, which is creating that picture, it doesn't make sense to go and smash that picture. We have to do something on the inside to change the movie that is playing. So, but that reflection, that outside world is important as well. Why? Because it helps us to know what we are going to be working on. So there are four aspects in life: health, wealth, relationship, and happiness. And those are like the four tires of a car. So if one of my tires is flat, I cannot drive far. I have to fix it. So what happens is that those four elements of health, wealth, relationship, and happiness, like the four tires of a car, we have to know which one is working properly and which one is not. So based on that, I've created a quiz, a free quiz that people can take. I call that quiz life quality assessment. It gives you a score in those four elements. So you go through 20 questions and it gives you a score in each of those aspects, and then you know which one is requires more work and which one is better. And there are two scores that are very important. One is the highest score that you get, and the second one is the lowest score that you get. Why the highest score? because some of us are more successful in one of those aspects. For example, let's say that somebody has good relationships and with their wife or husband or whatever who is around them. And then but they are not good in financial situation. So the relationships they you can see based on the scores that they have a good score in that. It means that they can help a lot of other people with that talent because that is easy for them, but it is a lot of problem for many other people. So they can help others and build businesses based on that. So what about the financial problem? So they have their score is low. So they have to focus on that too. That's like a flat tire. So they have to know what is the reason, the root cause, and those kind of things, beliefs and emotions that is involved, the specific patterns and habits that they have on spending money on the things that doesn't keep their value or something like that. So we have to explore our all those things. So that is a good starting point for people, so they can see where they are standing in life based
Mm.
on the score that they receive.
So this quiz that you have, is it located on your website?
It is when people go to my website, on the contact page of my website, there is a link to that quiz. But
Mm,
the link is joyfulfix.com/quiz. So
mm,
it's easy to remember. But
mm.
it is
I
available
see,
on the
I
contact
see
page
it.
of the website as
Yeah,
well.
it's a wonderful website, by the way, and I'm looking forward really to picking up this book and gifting it to many people because it looks super, super powerful, man. Wow.
Thank you. Yeah, there are things that story for that book. I don't know if you have time. I went skiing about a
Yeah.
year and a half ago and I fell down, and so I couldn't move my left arm. So I went to the emergency, and after the test, the MRI test, they said that you broke your scapula, which is a big bone in the shoulder, covered with the muscle. And the surgeon said something interesting. He said that I've only seen this kind of fracture in car accidents because the impact should be so high that to get to that stage that you fracture that bone. So I said that I was skiing, but after 40 years of skiing, I know what to do. But I was moving on a very almost flat surface, and I was moving very slow, and nobody was around me. And all of a sudden, I felt that I just fell down, wiped out, and I felt I was getting hit by something. So I didn't know what that is, like a lightning or something like that. So it smashed me to the ground with no reason. So I couldn't move my arm, and they gave me a lot of painkillers. They said that we cannot do much. It's going to take about 6 months. We give you the strongest painkillers that we have because with the very slight movement in your arm, you're going to cry from pain. So that was the case for me. So I took those pills, came home, and I said that I know life is my friend, is not my enemy. So if something like that happens, it means that I am receiving a gift in an ugly paper from life. Sometimes the gift, the wrapping is ugly, but it is a gift, valuable gift inside.
Wow.
So
Wow.
I was reflecting on that. What can I do in this situation? What is that gift? So what happens was that I noticed that I cannot move my left arm, but I'm still can use my right arm, right hand. So I started writing. I said that I've never had enough time to just sit down and write the things that I wanted to write. So now it is time. I cannot do anything else. So I went to the basement and started writing. Writing and writing and writing. I was writing for 12 hours, 14 hours, and my wife would come and drag me to the bed or something like that. But I noticed something. I never needed to take any painkiller when I was writing because the pain was so high. I had to take the painkillers every hour almost. But for 12 hours, 14 hours, I would forget about pain. I would forget about hunger and tiredness or something like that.
Mm,
So I felt something that I knew mentally. It is called being in the zone or the flow state. I
mhm.
knew about it. I never had the experience. So that thing just gave me the chance to experience the flow state. So I was writing and writing and writing. After a couple of weeks, I had a lot of written words on the paper. So I sent it to the publisher, and the publisher says that it's too much. We cannot publish all those. You have to cut it down. So the process for editing that book was taking me much longer than writing the book. And
Wow.
so it's very interesting. So that was the gift. In an ugly paper, they just put that my book inside. So they gave
Well,
it to me, you know.
I have learned from Stephen Kotler, right? He makes this he makes a couple of books, and one of them was Stealing Fire, about um Prometheus was the one who gave fire to humans. And he says, what is that fire? The fire is our burning desire that's inside of us in order to do these things that we are meant to do, right?
Yeah.
So he speaks about high level athletes or people like yourself writing books that you start to enter into this flow state. Time is suspended. Pain, any thoughts, any worries, any of those things just flow, and I try to be in that, especially when I'm running. It helps me with that flow state whenever I train my body and I push my body, because I also do obstacle course races. I've worked with this franchise, the Spartan races, which they give you something like 25 or 30 different obstacles, but it's a lot of running, and it's in mountains and ski lodges. But I
Mhm.
just seem to find myself, a little bit of myself in those times, because I'm just in that flow state. It just suspends it, man. It's
Yeah.
beautiful. I love it. It's like
It's
dancing.
Yeah, it is. You go beyond time and space. And then when you go beyond time and space, you access something that is not accessible. All the good things in the world that were lasting were created in that state. All the artworks, all the music, uh, by the big musicians and the poetry or something like that, they are all coming from that state. So you in that state you are just a channel for that information.
Mm.
And
Yeah.
sometimes
Mhm.
you produce something and you say, wow, is that me who did that? It is
Right.
not us. We are
Right.
just a channel. It's
Right.
just
I had read that Mozart, he said, I don't create music. It just comes to me.
exactly. You know
That's
what? You know, I was reading about Mozart's life. Did you know that the last piece of music that was produced by Mozart, he was producing it, he was creating it, and then what happened was his wife and his friend just opened the door to the room that he was doing it, and he found him dead in there. Why? Because he died from hunger, because he forgot about eating. It's unbelievable. So the wife,
unbelievable.
yeah, the wife and the friend finished that unfinished last piece
I
and
d- had
published.
I didn't know. I did know that he was a genius. He
Yeah,
was a genius. He was, I think, at age like 12, he was writing like full symphonies or some crazy thing like that. Yeah, he
yeah.
was
He
a
started from age
genius.
4 or 5.
Yeah,
It's unbelievable. Yeah,
unbelievable. Yeah, but he was just tapped into that thing, that flow state, and pushing those other things aside. Well, listen, we've passed the hour, and Thank you so much. Thank you. I appreciate it. I mean, wow, just the information that you've given us is just, it's incredible. It's priceless. Thank you. Thank you
Thank
so
you. Thank
much.
you for inviting me.
Of
It's a
course.
pleasure.
And there's so many synchronicities. It's
Yeah.
everything that you're speaking about. It's just crazy. That's what we're about just
Mm.
rising in that way. And then with the acronym, is that on your website too? RISE, the acronym?
It's not on my website, but I'm creating that program right now. As soon as it's finished, I'm just gonna publish it on the website, and people can access
That's
that.
beautiful. Yeah, if you could send me that, we're here to help and promote you in any way, shape, or form. Thank you so much for your time. I
Thank you.
appreciate you. Thank you. I'm just going to put you on the side for just a moment. I want to talk to you offline. Don't move.
Sure.
Okay. There you have it, guys. Thank you so much for tapping in. Wow, that was incredible. And if you stayed this long to the end of the show, that event that we're having with the ice and the yoga, if you come through, it's half price. Just mention that you were on listening to the show, tapping in, and mention joyful fix, and that will be your code word, and we'll take good care of you. Trust me. Just message me on the side, or if you're going to be there, we're going to the Strength Center in Gutenberg on Sunday, beginning at 10 a.m. You could just show up or just hit me up. Don't worry, we got you. Thank you. Peace.